one thing we are lacking are crosswalks. We moved here from DC. It's a little slower pace.
I saw you go by, I started running up behind you.
This is Brandon Brooks. He's from how many generations in town?
Oh, far back as I can remember.
Really?
At least 4.
Yep. Your weights are still in my field.
Yep.
Because they're at the top of the hill now.
Yeah, I did get them too there.
Okay. There's a quality of life that we like here. Oh, the mayor is right behind you.
Oh,
Hey, Larry. We joke about how living in major cities, we never felt like our social calendar was as packed as it is in Water Valley. That's actually my hey man. So I bought those buildings all the way back. I ended up buying them from the IRS. So they were not expensive. There's a reason why we are not doing this in DC or in New England or on the West Coast. The cost of entry here is very low. So if you actually like to work, you can accomplish all sorts of things. You can fit all sorts of cool things in these amazing shelves. But it was a just mix and match what you think can fill in a small town. Now we have 5 storefronts, and we have the chiropractor, the furniture store. This is a young man who builds golfing simulators and installs them all over the country. A little boutique hotel with 4 efficiency apartments that all are funky and cool. The person who owned these buildings, he passed away. In his lifetime, he had not done a thing to maintain them. So the farthest one north of the street had collapsed. The roof hit the second floor, took out the first floor and blew the glass across the street one day. This was rubble up to the beam. And so I cut it back until we hit wood that hadn't been rotten since the roof had failed. And then built back the porch. And so we have on the back of this building, we have a 2-story apartment. That's a little hotel room up there. And this is, right now I don't think the town can support it economically, but my hope is that in 5 years it can come here to a little French bistro with a good wine list. When we started digging literally with shovels through this building, here we found a safe, and it was full of receipts and ledger books for the Blue Buck Mercantile.
What you can see in this building and what we've done in all these other buildings have been done is they have been reimagined. So you take a building that was a foundry and it's now a brewery, a drugstore is now an art gallery. The department store, it's now a restaurant and a school. You can either buy the stuff that you want to have, or you can buy it and fix it you want it. I think that's the thing here is that the entry price is pretty low. There's a lot to fix, but it wasn't bad or trashy in the first place, and you can bring it back.
So this is Main Street.
This is Main Street. This town's been in existence since 1858, and it's a railroad town. It came into existence mainly because of the railroad and the railroad line that first came through here between Chicago and New Orleans. And trains back then required a lot of maintenance, so they had repair shops along the way. Water Valley was a repair shop from right after the Civil War to 1930. That was the heyday. So for that time period, to right into the Depression, this place was a booming town and was the largest town in the area. And then the economic drive came to a slamming stop. And what happened was, so from 1930 to I would say pretty recently, the town didn't grow, it just held its own. So what you see still here is a town that was 4,000 to 5,000 people, and it hasn't really expanded. And so what you don't see is a lot of newer construction from the 30s on. And so it's kind of a little bit of a time warp. Mississippi alone is a time warp in itself, but this is even more of a time warp in Mississippi.
My great-grandfather bought this in 1905. It's been here ever since. We've been here, 111 years. Mechanics Bank's been here 124 years. The Herald has been here I don't know how many years. But, a lot of things go, over the years, several businesses that went out and the stores were empty for several years. And then new blood came in, I guess, and had newer ideas and jump-started it.
The deal, how we got into North Mississippi is we got married. I said, I'll go wherever you can find a job. The job opened here in the area. And so we started looking at communities around. I think one of the positives about Mississippi is that there's a lot of small towns with great architecture, residential, commercial. And there's solid little towns, and you can still get that stuff for a song in a way. So we came down here, we bought an old house, a big porch, easy walking distance to downtown. Then we bought this building, and then we worked on it. So we've been here now.
So Mickey, it was like this.
17 years.
When we bought this building here, it was a very hot summer. It was actually the summer of 2005, and it was blazing hot. And we were walking around here thinking, I don't know, Mickey said, well, what about commercial real estate? We're like, what? This is not what we're doing. And it was so hot, we lost our minds.
So this building was built in 1880, and it originally was a drugstore. You can still see from the 30s where the ice cream counter was here. Here was the drain for the counter. They also, some of the old timers told me that in the windows right here, we've redone the facade but kept the pattern the same, that you'd have tables. And so when we redid the building, we dug up a lot of the earth, and stuck behind a lot of the trim were a lot of old ice cream spoons.
When you found the building, it was
Yeah, I'll show you.
abandoned?
It was empty. So this is what the building kind of looked like when we got it back here. Masonry was in pretty tough shape. This concrete wall, when we got here, was about to literally fall into the street. And so we wanted to save the brick on the outside with the stucco finish. And what we did is we put an internal framework in the building to take some of the load bearing off the masonry walls. We replumbed the place and rewired it and everything.
Because you're doing your own work?
Yeah.
You were construction? Or?
Fabrication, and I was a mechanic for many years. For many years, I worked a shrimp boat, and if you know anything about commercial fishing, you need fabrication skills to fix stuff.
So it's not like you just got an old building. I mean, you actually have an old building that was starting to crumble.
Yeah, it was about to fall down. I mean, that's the thing about it, is you can buy something like this pretty inexpensive. So this building was $60,000. Buildings here, I can give you a square footage. They were going for about, if they were really rough shape, they were going $8 a square foot to, if they were so-so, up to about 20. And this is a decade ago. So that low price entry level gives you a freedom to try something that you really want. Those pieces are nice, aren't they?
I like all of it. It's a good thing.
We bought this building with the idea of doing something with it. And my wife had 7 years of working with an art gallery, and so it just seemed like a fit.
I'm not sure what this bunch is doing. I don't know what they're doing, what they got between them. Something they have to do, probably.
You know, this is Brad Cushman, who we used to work with in Oklahoma. This actually is his father, and apparently they were having a fun time because, you know.
Well, and that's what they do for Bloody Mary.
So with a low price entry level, it doesn't have to be a sure thing. You can take a chance on doing something that you want to do. If it fails, it doesn't bankrupt you for life. So that's the advantage of a place like this.
I'd like to say that today is actually kind of a cool day in the BTC, because just today, Eddie Rogers brought me the first sweet corn. Hal Vaughn brought me 200 pounds of tomatoes, which I've got boxes everywhere. We actually call his tomatoes love apples because they're enormous and beautiful. And then also delivered today, my husband and I moved to Water Valley in 2006. We didn't plan on having a store. We got local okra, picked this morning, squash, picked this morning. This building was empty, had been empty for at least a decade. It was actually owned by a developer who planned to tear it down for its bricks. My husband decided he needed something to do besides his office job, so we bought it.
So the why, it was there. We're in Mississippi, so it was inexpensive. It was more of a tree fort than anything else. It was a place to go after work and play. I didn't borrow any money for this renovation. It was just end of the week, see how much money we had left over and buy paint or a floor sander or whatever I needed for the next month and chip away.
It's all we spent our money on, the lumber yard.
The experience, or how were you able to renovate?
I read a lot. It's just, nobody was watching. There was no goal. So this was a big learning experiment. I think the front windows were the only ones that were still whole. The back, they had been abandoning the building from the back forward. And so it was open to the elements back there. From here back was wide open to the elements. And this staircase was not here. This was the first one I ever made. It's very robust. So this was a full gut, piecemeal the ceiling back together. The floors had 3 layers of asbestos tiles. And the reason they're so dark is because the prior owner had glued those tiles directly to the wood floors with that black glue that even 80 years later it was still liquid. So there was no way to get it off except if you set it on fire and you burned it until it was crisp and all the gooey parts were gone, and then you could run a floor sander over it. So this entire upstairs was a series of 3-foot by 3-foot fires that I would set and sit on a bucket and wait for them to burn themselves out.
So you were just winging it.
This was 8 p.m. until about 2 a.m. after my day job and after my wife and the kids were asleep. This is where I got to go and play.
So he worked on it, he kept his full-time job, and he worked on it nights and weekends for a couple years. We had our kids and actually moved into another house that we also renovated, and I wanted to do something besides be at home with children. We had this building that no one really had any plans for. There was not a demand for commercial real estate in downtown Water Valley.
By the time I had finished the downstairs, we didn't have a plan. We showed some movies, just folding chairs and a big temporary screen. We did all sorts of random things until Alexi decided to essentially move the farmer's market indoors.
Right. She was running the market.
Yeah.
Those are William Jeffries. You know him from Coffeyville?
Yeah.
The only thing I ever left Water Valley for regularly was groceries. Got some really great peaches from Chilton County. So I was like, well, I bet I'm not the only one leaving town for groceries. So this milk is probably the reason that I started the BTC, because it was the thing that I was completely addicted to and you could not find in Water Valley. It's from a guy named Billy Ray Brown. He's like a country Mississippi guy, and he decided one day he was going to start a dairy, which had not been done in Mississippi for like 50 years. The Department of Health didn't even know what to do with him. And it's just the best milk in the world, 12 miles away.
We had some economic data that showed that we were losing $500,000 a year in specialty foods. And I think y'all thought if we could capture not all of that, but just a percentage of that, it would be enough to get things going.
These are 2 of my girls. It's evolved a lot. When we first opened, we wanted to be a kind of a one-stop shop grocery store with a sort of country-style spin to it, because we are in Water Valley, Mississippi, and the gourmet marketplace I didn't think was a super sustainable business plan. So we got some pretty great local ice cream. I saw it mentioned on Facebook, and so I reached out to them, and Hugh makes that over in Clarksdale. So he uses Billy Ray's milk. And then my husband and I keep pigs. Well, we keep a lot of things, but The pigs are the only thing we sell.
Okay.
So we're able to sell pasture-raised pork, but I can tell you those pigs had very good lives for not that much money. For what's essentially organic pork, it's not bad. We've just sort of evolved to what our customers want, fresh and local, the things that they have to go to Oxford for, and then they also want a cafe. I'm not sure how many places in the world that you can get a fried bologna and hoop cheese sandwich and grilled ahi tuna steak on focaccia bread, but here you can. It's just something that had evolved. And then also back here, antiques and junk, we decided to invite our friends and neighbors to have booths here. The nice part is I'm not responsible for sourcing it, displaying it, pricing it. I just sell it.
What's nice is, so everywhere we've passed, I'm in the hardware store every day. I'm probably in the printing shop at least every other week. I'm in the auto parts store more times than I like. I spent a long time there yesterday, because my tractor broke. Friday at our house is movie night, and so we get pizza delivered. This, we're waiting to see what happens here. It's been a coffee shop, it's now a hotel. We're at Mickey's Gallery at least for every opening every month. This is our drugstore, / where you can get a $1 ice cream cone. And the kids are here probably every day after school. My bank, I do love this bank. So you can go up and down this street and there's nothing superfluous. Mickey's wife likes to talk about how hard a dollar has to work to get out of Water Valley because it just gets handed back and forth all day long.
This is the poster from Walmart. A Walmart Express wanted to move to town. When we knew they were coming here, we put up a big fight. And nothing against Walmart, but we're a very small town. And we have a really old pharmacy here that's 110 years old. Family owned, right downtown, 4th generation running it. And we've got a grocery store it's on its 3rd generation running it. And that would have really hurt. We had some economic data that suggested that while Walmart creates jobs, the overall effect after a while is actually to reduce the job count. Once we got that out to everybody, they didn't see it was such a great deal. And of course, they were already in the area. We fought it. And they didn't come here. They went to another town and built it there. And then a year later, Walmart abandoned the whole express concept and closed all those stores nationwide. And small towns that had them, frankly, really suffered because they were in there long enough to kill some of the old businesses. It's not that we beat Walmart, we discouraged them. Nobody beats them. We're part of the National Main Street program, Main Street Association, National Main Street, and it's about 1,500 towns nationwide. It kind of gave us a little bit of an organizational framework. If you know anything about Main Street, it's economic development through historic preservation, and you work with everybody who's in town, so downtown merchants, the residents, everybody who's got a stake in the town. So if you think about your downtown, it's a bunch of privately held buildings, but there's this great public space, which is the sidewalks and the streets and the surrounding parks. No, you're good.
Diane, you want to sit in this chair and wait for us to come back?
We have the philosophy that downtown is for everybody, whether it's publicly held or privately held. And so we blurred that line and said we're just going to fix it and make it better for all of us. Colby, see you later.
Get well. Yes.
When we got into the Main Street Association, that helped a lot. It was bad. I mean, wasn't much going on. Most people were leaving town to do stuff instead of looking to come here. But with all this, and a lot of people are getting behind it. There are some people that want to keep it the way it was, quiet and almost dead. But I'm glad it's picking up. There's more of a willingness to try new ideas, because I never would have expected art galleries in the town or brewery in the town or anything like that.
Friday night, this whole area is just packed between the Mexican El Chorrito there and the Crawdad Hole, and we have live music on Friday nights. Pretty much everybody in town comes because the music's free.
What was this before?
It was the old Hendrix Machine Shop, but that was years ago.
Okay.
It was also one of the first Ford dealerships in all of the South.
And what we do here is bring back old structures and reuse them. We've done 29 buildings in this town that have been redone, and out of a building inventory of about 100.
Hey, Adam.
What we've tried to do here just recently is push education. So
Hey, Nate.
we're the first town in the state that's put a software writing academy in our downtown.
So this is the latest thing that we've done with the space that we have. Hey, Sean.
So at the BTC upstairs, there's a school. Everybody's on scholarship there.
This is Sean Anthony. He's our director for Base Camp.
You teach kids.
We teach them computer coding, and it's not just like a regular boot camp. It's they'll be with us for a year, and then by the end of the year, be entering jobs in software development. You can think of it as on-the-job training, pretty much.
A friend of mine, he writes histories for military bases that he either worked on.
Rents out space?
Yep. We've kind of shuffled around here quite a bit. So this is right now my office. The room that the school is in has been my office. And these are just spaces that you build because they're fun, and then you find the right fit.
And you have a full-time job?
Now I do not. I did in a software company. It's not my most favorite thing. It's just not very engaging. This stuff I like. And so I left to do, actually I didn't really leave with a plan.
He leaves a job where he's making 6 figures, right?
Mickey loves this.
And nobody in his right mind would do that, but I understand he did that. And then he takes off on his journey around the country to look at other places that he thinks are more interesting where we could do stuff. And he comes to the realization that where he's at actually is pretty interesting.
These buildings, we renovated those 5 at the same time over about 14 months. So walking into my bank and reminding them that I didn't have a job, but I really like doing this stuff. And what do they think about giving me a whole lot of money to do this project? And largely because the BTC building had done well in the past 5 years, they said, okay. If you want to come upstairs. So I probably spent 4-5 times the purchase price on the renovation. And then here we have, this is a hotel room. So we build them as little efficiency apartments.
People come to town.
This is a community that actually survives. It's a blue collar working community. So we have 2 large employers. A good 40% of my business is it's supplied by the local employers, and there are contractors that come into town. So 2 more rooms. They're all similar. Alexi and I have a deal that we can try anything we want with the understanding that we may lose everything and have to start over. And this is the only skylight that survived without rotting out the entire building. These buildings is the biggest gamble by probably 4 times that I've ever taken. And it was, if this had gone flat, we would have been looking for a house.
Love the decoration. I love the feed bag.
Simple solutions.
Yeah. And all done yourself still?
Yep.
Yeah.
This one I had help, but it was 12 hours a day. So this was the first thing that I ever done, which it was a full-time job for me. It's amazing the difference in the cost of a project if you're there leading as opposed to every time I see a friend who's taking on one of these challenges and they're hiring out everything, and I drive by and I see 6 guys leaning on shovels, and I think, I know the cost per hour of those 6 people sitting there.
It's just so beautiful.
Yep.
You can't recreate that. I mean, you can't buy this.
So if you try to insure something like this and try to get a policy based on replacement cost, there you cannot build walls this thick. So still, everything that Alex and I have done in town, we're probably tipping the balance right now, but the 6 commercial buildings, the houses we own in town, and the business, collectively, probably if we liquidated all of it, wouldn't buy us the house we wanted in DC.
So it's not to make money.
Actually, money stopped being a motivation about an hour before I quit my job. I was contemplating buying a car that I'd wanted for a long time, and I was suddenly in a position to afford. And I was going to buy that car to go to a job every day that would help pay for that car. And I suddenly thought, why? Why? It's such a small loop. I'm not sure if you build up a pile, if that's your goal, what do you do once you get it?
You guys know Mary, right? She's doing this kind of crazy stuff where she'll take an image that's a crack in the sidewalk, and then she does this kind of like drawing a fantasy out of it. It's like looking at clouds in reverse.
That's smart.
Just fantasy doodles. So we've had this open now for 8 years, and it's been a lot of fun. And then there's like Adrian down here, who's doing these sketches with kids. She lives here in town. This is her daughter. Having an art gallery in a town of 3,500 people, 4,000 people, you won't get rich. But you can build it. It's a little building process. It's not laid out there ready for you. You know Hannah, you know Bill, you see Jack. Jack Gurner's photographs of town. So this is Main Street from back in the late 80s. It's kind of a gathering point for the community. And that's this building right here in 1976. I think that's what we've done with a lot of these buildings, is we've brought them back to life, put people in them, pushed them together for different small events, and got people talking. And once you get that happening, good things will come out of it. I think if you're younger now and you're trying to do something in a bigger city, I look at the numbers and I find them really just daunting and cost prohibitive, and you're in such debt. If you're willing to work hard and sweat, these kind of forgotten small towns can be a new frontier. You know, you can get in on the ground floor, you can do the work. You have to be able to want to do it yourself, but the economic opportunity is there to actually own something.